help women save lives and peacefully end abortion where you live.
I can tell you exactly what would happen. The infant would be delivered. The infant would be kept comfortable. The infant would be resuscitated if that's what the mother and the family desired.
You were serious about that?
Be inspired to change hearts and minds by joining over 1 million volunteers taking part in the global movement happening in your neighborhood.
She says, pray that I can get through this abortion. And I said, oh, no. So she went ahead and went into the abortion clinic. When she just came out, she told us, I'm not going to get the abortion. We just had a baby saved. We had a baby saved in Memphis today. Praise the Lord.
This is the 40 Days for Life podcast with your host, Sean Carney.
Hello, and thank you for joining us today on the 40 Days for Life podcast. I'm Sean Carney, the president of 40 Days for Life, and your host for this podcast, which is dedicated to helping you end abortion where you live. And today we're going to talk about the exposé on Planned Parenthood that was done by none other than the New York Times? ? That happened, and we took a little bit of time, a couple of weeks, to break it down for you, what it means, what it doesn't mean, and our conspiracy theory about the New York Times article blasting Planned Parenthood just when we thought all media was lost. They actually did a pretty good story on it, and it makes us suspicious. So we are going to break that down and let you know why you should be suspicious of this on this episode of the 40 Days for Life podcast. And joining me today is somebody who I've been suspicious of for a very, very long time, and that is Mr. Steve Carlin.
Oh, that's me? I thought that was Heather.
Heather, we have an announcement. We're going to cover some listener feedback, okay, on this, because we've covered many topics. So we're going to just kind of talk about a few of the things you have emailed in as the listener. And one of them was there is a group of women, they're all women, that refer to Heather as the lady panelist. We're putting that on your business card.
I'm so glad to be here.
Do you help? What do you do for 40 Days for Life? I'm the lady panelist. Mm-hmm. So
that's me.
Yeah, we almost gave that title to Steve, but it's actually yours. So congratulations.
Thank you.
We will now no longer use your name on the podcast. We will address you as the lady panelist.
I do need to change my name badge.
The lower third where it kind of introduces her on the screen, that too. Jill needs to set that up.
Oh, yes.
Lady panelist. What's other feedback that we have that doesn't have to do with lady panelist?
You know, this one we might not have to get to a second listener feedback email today, but this is from Amy. Sean, there are legitimate rumors that Buc-ee's is coming to Michigan.
Ooh.
I've heard that too.
So what do we have to do first? What are the top 5 must-dos at Buc-ee's?
Great. Wow, that's legit. Top 5 is the sliced brisket sandwich, number 1. Number 2 are the homemade potato chips. Number 3, this is sad we didn't rehearse this and I'm rounding this off.
Yeah,
the banana pudding. The banana pudding. Number 4 is, this is controversial, but they have their beef jerky that's like prepared in the bag, and that's good, and it's much easier, and I think it's probably cheaper. But if you want to go to the counter, okay, if you go to the counter and you get, like, you'll see the glass, and there's like a billion. I almost murdered you on this one time because I bought the spicy stuff and didn't have any water, and you almost died. And then, of course, I discovered I had a huge bottle of water under the seat.
A case of water.
Case of water. My bad, bro. But if you go to the case, they'll have, like, it's all glassed in. If you pick that jerky out, it's fresher, it's better, and it is more expensive. So you're like, oh, my, did I just spend $35 on a couple of strips of beef jerky? But it's very, very good.
I feel like we need to go back for
Was that 5?
No, that was 4.
Okay. This last one actually is very controversial. This is like, we'll lose listeners. All right. I love this. It's a little bit of a guilty pleasure. It looks disgusting, but it's good. They have jars of spicy pickled boiled eggs.
Oh, yes. I've seen those.
Now, it looks like something like Sigourney Weaver discovered in the movie Aliens, like on the ship. Like, oh, my God, they're harvesting the eggs, you know. They're phenomenal. And I buy a jar, at least a jar a month. because I'm driving a lot, and so I'll pull over and I eat them.
What?
It is a lot. It is a lot.
gosh.
And I'll drink the juice.
And
like a
eggs are
vampire.
expensive, so those are that much more expensive.
So what's weird is the jar is like $6.99, and there's a lot of. It's a big jar. So you're kind of like, if you saw them, you're like, oh, they're going to be like $12.99 a total rip. But they're not bad. They're like $6 or $7. But if you want to get nuts, all their salsa's good for the most part. None of the like weird mango stuff, but like
I like the salsa.
the salsa's very good. Their salsa verde is very good. So those would be, I know all those related to food. Obviously the bathroom is the best part, but that was all related to food.
No stepping over women in those bathrooms.
Thank you, Whoopi Goldberg. A note of caution as to not be disappointed. Their coffee's not very good. And it doesn't really match.
Have you had their coffee? I haven't had their coffee.
Not a coffee guy.
He's never had
That's right.
coffee.
That's
period.
right. You don't like coffee.
I feel like we've gotten a little ahead of ourselves and that we should share with those who are not blessed to live in a state with Buc-ee's
what Buc-ee's
Buc-ee's is.
You can't explain it.
Oh.
That's like, what is heaven like? Eyes not seen, ears not heard. So although we've been to Buc-ee's, we can't. It's like if you die and you go to heaven. Because those speeches are inspiring, but it's still, it's like, I don't know what the guy's talking about. You know, it's like that. You go to heaven for 5 minutes and then you come back and you're back on earth. Everybody's like, what was it like? And you're like, I'm speechless.
You're saying C.S. Lewis wrote The Great Divorce about going to Buc-ee's?
Yeah. So the reason is because you won't do it justice, just like you won't do heaven justice. So it's a really nice big gas station with good food and clean bathrooms. That's a lot of places around the country. But this is different.
It's a mini redneck Walmart.
No.
That's maybe an oxy.
No, that's really bad. You're misleading this. Is this a lady or man from Michigan?
It is a lady writer.
Okay, and I'm sure she loves our lady panelist. Don't mislead her because we haven't gotten into the clothes.
Yeah.
We haven't gotten into like for the men, like if you want a buck knife or a pocket knife.
The 6-foot-tall stuffed animals.
They're always seasonal. So a couple of weeks ago, I was like, they already got their St. Patrick's Day Buc-ee shirts out. And I was so tempted to buy one to freak out my kids, but I didn't. Anyways, all of that. It's super, super cool. But the coffee's disappointing. What's wrong with Buc-ee's? Nothing. That's the quick answer. The coffee.
Just check the clock to see how far we got
how far we got with Trump.
is.
The coffee is disappointing. I would say that's the only thing. Everything else totally over delivers. And I am working in crowds. I've been with 8 kids at a just unbelievably crowded Buc-ee's, and it is just still manageable and enjoyable. So you may hit a big crowd, but
They still have, no matter what, I've never waited more than 60 seconds in a line at Buc-ee's because they
me neither.
have
Yeah.
checkouts at every exit. There's multiple exits. No matter what side of the building on, you can leave that side.
Yeah. Isn't a good tip, though, for people in Buc-ee's is if it looks from the interstate that it's jam-packed and will be miserable, it's not. It's not. Like, people have to be, like, parked in the grass for you to, like, notice, man, it's kind of crowded. They're so big, and people are so spread out. Half the people are in the bathroom. And so it's not crowded if it looks crowded from
Even when it is
the right.
crowded, it's like a festive type of crowd. It's like it's Christmas time and you're at the airport and you're about to visit home. People are coming and going. Everybody's happy. That's how I feel about Buc-ee's. And the other way I've described Buc-ee's to people when we have our symposium and the leaders come and they make the field trip to Buc-ee's. They're like, "What
It's
is
a pilgrimage,
Buc-ee's?"
Steve?
Yes.
Get your wording correct.
Field trip, pilgrimage. If you need something, they probably don't have it. If you don't need it, they have all kinds of it. Whatever you don't need is there in abundance.
Yeah.
I can't believe y'all haven't mentioned beaver nuggets.
I don't like those.
Well, you're terrible.
I'm not a sweets guy, though. I don't really like sweet
Well,
snacks.
for all the people with sweet teeth,
Yeah.
sweet teeth. That's probably my default. If I'm going to get anything at Buc-ee's, I'm going to get.
Okay, so what's
beaver
better than
nuggets.
the beaver nuggets are the cashews and all the nuts.
Yes, the mixed, like the trail
It's like
mix.
Christmas, and that's
Yeah.
actually what you
Yeah.
smell. You smell the fudge and the nuts when you walk in. That's like unbelievable. And then they have the barbecue. We didn't even get into sausage on a stick, but there's a lot there.
If people want to know what beaver nuggets are, they
No, I don't know what
remind
those are.
me very much of Corn Pops, the cereal Corn Pops. Do they still make that cereal?
Yes, they do, and yes, that's a good analogy. I will say, even though I'm not a huge fan of the beaver nuggets are even better. than corn pops.
Yeah, I agree.
But
I have family out of state that when I go visit them, I will bring them a bag of beaver nuggets.
Yeah.
Because they're like, oh my
But
God.
then we can get into it. Like Buc-ee's, they've got salads, they've got fruit trays, they've got if you want to be healthy, Buc-ee's is great. They have like turkey and cheese things. If you're doing like a protein thing, they have veggies.
It's not as essential for you to get your exercise if you buy the riding lawnmower that's also for sale.
Yeah, then you can get a $9,000 fire pit. This was needed, and you're just winning for ice. So that's how they get you. All their ice is super
Should be
cheap.
on the list of the top things to do.
The ice is amazing. And of course, if he's around, a picture with Buc-ee.
He's usually around. There's usually something outside for you to take a picture with.
This is believable, but I have heard it is just a phenomenal company and place to work. The guy's an Aggie. He went to A&M, the guy who started it. But yeah, congratulations. Where in Michigan is the Buc-ee's going? Do we know?
I do not know. It does not say. It does not say. But Amy has sent us a great email, and we are all better off for it.
Any other listener feedback?
We could. No, we'll save the rest for
Okay.
a future.
We're going to tease it. Okay.
That's right, podcast.
We're going to get into the topic. There's an idea. Okay. So the New York Times basically did this investigation into Planned Parenthood. It's interviews with 50 current and former executives, consultants, medical staff.
Here's what I love about that. It wasn't. I think they're making it clear when they say this. This is not like the disgruntled guy who like cleaned the parking lot.
Right. I never got a raise. When I went to the Christmas party, all the cookies were gone. I hate those people. These are like current employees. And we're looking at like botched abortions, disillusioned employees and staffers. I don't know what they're doing.
Patterns of these, not just one-offs.
Yes.
Systemic.
Systemic.
Very good word.
Yeah, no, it's an old word. It's washed up. Okay. So here's the thing of why this is bad and what anybody participating in 40 Days for Life, which hopefully you're doing right now, your impact on your local abortion facility is bigger today than it ever has been because of all of these things that are going on. They've gone from 900 facilities in the 1990s to 600 today. So their market has shrank. We obviously also have these, many states that are either highly regulated abortion, a few that have just banned abortion altogether. But Roe fell and the world didn't end. And that's bad for Planned Parenthood. They needed the world to end. They needed women to be dying in the streets. They needed women to be dying in the bathrooms at Buc-ee's, and it just never happened. And so they've lost more than half their clients.
What other industry can handle that?
None.
If suddenly Apple, we all got phones, Apple loses half of their customers, it's over.
Well, you need to reverse that. That actually happened, and it was BlackBerry. Apple
Yes.
took half their, and
that's
I
right.
had a relative, and he worked at BlackBerry, and like he heard the CEO speak about the rise of Apple. And he went upstairs to his hotel room at their national conference, sold his BlackBerry stock, and quit. Because he's like, that guy's a moron and he doesn't get it. Like he had never seen an iPhone. He's just like blasting Apple and iPhones and how they're not going to come close. And it's a blip in the radar and blah, blah, blah. And he's like, and I'm out.
He was wrong.
Yeah, exactly. So that happened and BlackBerry didn't make it.
It's Blockbuster.
It's not Blockbuster. The Blockbuster analogy would be that like Netflix is RU46. Okay. But there's not enough to say that definitively. Like we're still going to have these brick and mortar abortion facilities. They're still very strong in certain parts of the country. Whereas Blockbuster was just like a matter of time till they sank like the Titanic, and they did.
Fair.
This is 5 million clients in the 1990s for Planned Parenthood to just over 2 million now. That's not sustainable unless they start to sell their real estate, which we've said and Ramona has said And Abby has said, like, we don't know why they're not doing that. It seems like tomorrow they would start doing it. And that could happen. They could all do it overnight.
I think it's beginning. We've got a great new, I think longtime 40 Days for Life folks will remember the wonderful picture of the sign coming down in front of the building that we're in right now, the former Planned Parenthood in College Station, Texas. We've got a new sign, a new photo kind of like that of the Mobile, Alabama Planned Parenthood, the workers taking the sign down. So
the Chuck E. Cheese.
Throw that up on the screen.
Yeah, there's a Chuck E. Cheese across the street.
Oh, man.
But Chuck E. Cheese let us park there. Chuck E. Cheese was pro-life.
Well, thank goodness. It makes sense.
Well, he makes all of his money off kids.
Yeah. How many, I'd like to know, I would love if we did a survey and actually knew how many of our abortion facilities that we are, well, even if we don't pray outside of them, have a school or a daycare or some sort of child center across the street or next door to them. I know we have that in Columbia, Missouri, and a few other places, and that just every time that baffles me. It's like, and it wouldn't make sense for Chuck E. Cheese not to be pro-life. That's literally their customer.
But then you see some of these groups that are where there's like that company that makes the baby products and they're giving money to Planned Parenthood, and you've got like the
March
teachers
of Dimes giving money to Planned Parenthood.
And unfortunately, it used to be wholesome, but that was long ago. Disney, which is the other wealthy rodent in our country, Mickey Mouse, and he fell, but Chucky never fell. Chucky's a rat, though, isn't he?
I think Chucky's a rat.
Which is great. Like, how smart are those executives? We're going to build a pizza, a food company, a restaurant. What's the mascot?
A rat.
Do you have rats in your kitchen? No, he never goes in the kitchen. He walks around and he stares at the children.
Plays guitar.
Yeah, he does play guitar. But, and of course, Mickey's a mouse. But yeah, those like companies that make their money off children supporting March of Dimes is the worst. So anyways, okay, so this New York Times article, apparently reproductive health care is not safe at all. There's a woman who had an abortion in Albany, New York. She continued to bleed heavily and cramp for weeks. So her pregnancy test came back positive. Planned Parenthood assured her that the abortion workers saw the aborted fetus and there was no problem. So she thinks she's still pregnant.
At this point, this is still a little bit like, even if this is all we know, this is odd, right? Don't worry, we saw the fetus. Like, they don't want to talk about the fetus. They don't want to acknowledge the fetus.
Yeah, we saw your dead baby. Yeah. You're good.
Don't worry.
That's the goal of the procedure, is a dead baby at the end. So
yeah, well, this is also the reason we like this New York Times article, which I never thought we would actually say out loud, is because it's honest. And this is the honest part of abortion. Your baby's dead, so the abortion was successful. You don't have anything to worry about. And so it was only after she went to the emergency room that she discovered the problem. The baby was still in her womb.
And that's the verbiage, the exact verbiage from the New York Times. The New York Times, the paper of record, wrote the baby was still in her womb.
Wow. I wonder if it was edited later to correct the terminology.
Not last that we looked.
Wow.
Well, this is it has it starts as a happy ending and ends with a sad ending. So 3 months after the abortion, she gives birth to the baby, and the baby dies quickly after birth. We don't know. I don't remember from the article. She was upset that the baby died. Is that correct? Or was it?
I don't know.
They don't get into
she was
that.
upset for sure. I don't know.
But it wasn't like, well, we got the same result. It just took longer.
It didn't say either way. What we do know is that she took legal action. She got representation of an attorney who has numerous other complaints against Planned Parenthood. So it's not, I suppose one could say, it's just a one-off. And here we have an attorney who has received numerous complaints, and he said, I speak out and have sued them, being Planned Parenthood. I speak out and have sued Planned Parenthood because even disadvantaged people deserve good health care. So this is a
if you
phenomenon.
Go to Planned Parenthood, you are disadvantaged.
Wow.
That's the other problem with that sentence. But yeah, so in California, Planned Parenthood settled the case after being accused of improperly implanting a birth control device in a woman's arm, causing nerve damage.
When you go, we're opposed to birth control, right? But you go in and you get your birth control at Planned Parenthood. I don't think that anyone was thinking, I hope I don't walk out of here with nerve damage.
But this is just like a little litany. So that was in California. In Nebraska, Planned Parenthood inserted an IUD, not realizing the woman was 4 months pregnant.
Seems like something.
Take a pregnancy test for that. The woman was
Or
rushed
an
to the
ultrasound.
I know. The woman was rushed to the ER and delivered a stillborn baby. That was Nebraska. Then another understaffed Planned Parenthood affiliate, we'll just say in the North, did not share STI results with patients, leading to patients believing that they tested negative when they were actually positive.
But some of those, okay, I don't know how well
There's
that
a lot
can.
you could say about that.
Yeah, but there's a lot of times where they say certain diseases, certain STDs or STIs will go undetected. So how much at fault are they for that if they're testing and it's not guaranteed that it's going to pick up the disease?
Here's what happened. I think the undetected is usually like without the testing. If I'm wrong on that, I'm wrong. I don't know. But here's the thing is it wasn't that they didn't know the test results, is that the staff got the test results. Oh, you're positive. And then never notified them. And so
Right.
they thought, oh, no news is good news. I guess I'm in the clear. And they were not.
Wow. Yay, STDs.
It's this t-shirt.
Spreading them all over.
T-shirt I'm not going to wear. But it still seems like as a patient, like if you go into your regular doctor for your annual checkup, right? And you're a worrier, right? And I can be, but I've got nothing on you. You're like Carl Lewis and Michael Phelps, like combined. If you go and get your regular blood work, and they usually post it like a day, 2 days later, and you go, okay, well, I'm fine, whatever. If you don't hear anything, you're like, well, I'll be dead in 6 weeks. You know, wouldn't they call and say, hey, I took this STD test? They obviously are worried about it, which is why they got the STD test. I can't imagine not calling and getting the results, but that's not the point of this whole thing. So anyways, Planned Parenthood was not telling people that they were positive, so they're running around, sleeping around, thinking that they are negative. Okay, here's some just generic health and safety problems that the New York Times points out. In Omaha, sewage seeped into the abortion recovery room for days, causing clients to vomit.
Is that frowned upon? Is that not supposed to be the case? In the New York Times article, they have a photo of it where there's putting down like paper towel or something.
We're going to get to our conspiracy.
Wow.
Because this article, it's not too good to be true, but there's something going on, and we're going to inform the listener of it because we have insider information that's just in our heads. Pain meds also frequently ran out. Well, that's not good. So, yeah, this is just health and safety. Yeah, we'll get to Alexis McGill-Johnson, their CEO, later. But this is why it's really for the shameful people that think that Roe v. Wade falling was like a bad thing or whatever, or somehow not good for the pro-life movement. It's total nonsense. It's actually divine providence of just the timing of this, of having, you know, not to mention the re-election of Trump and him defunding Planned Parenthood International and all this stuff, but just the fact that they're not in good shape. They don't have a good leader. Then Roe falls. Now they have potential to be defunded. And, you know, their leader is not a capable person.
Yeah, a few months ago, we did the podcast about the mutiny of employees at Planned Parenthood. And that's where we first met Grace Larson, who we meet here again. She's the one who tried to help her Planned Parenthood unionize and then was persecuted for it. She talks about expired pain meds being given out, wrong medications being administered because the staff are all rushing. And she said it is not uncommon for patients to be prepped for the wrong procedure. The case in point in the article was a woman who was going for, I think, a pap smear, and she's put in the room with the ultrasound machine and maybe the suction machine. I can't remember what was all there, but she's in like a procedure room, and I'm not here for an abortion. Oh, oops.
In legitimate healthcare, they overdo that. I know mistakes are made in medicine, but they overdo it. My uncle is a retired orthopedic surgeon, and he actually, when he was in his career, he had a facility where he owned that he did his own surgery. So he's doing surgeries all day, and he would come in with a Sharpie, like you're getting your left arm operated on. He would put a massive black X on your right arm. It was always funny, especially like for kids or whatever, because they're like think it's funny. But some people are like, are you really going to mess up that badly? But he's like, I take no risk. Like, I don't want to do surgery on the wrong arm. So he just puts a big black X when he goes to cut. And it's like a funny thing, but it's also a practical thing. They're just like, putting you in the ultrasound room when you're there, for who knows what. It's just so careless. It's also, you're just not going to see a doctor there unless you're having an abortion. And this is the result, is that it's not legitimate health care, which is why they always scream at us that it is.
And why is all of this happening? There's multiple reasons, but I think we've definitely talked many times before. I know we've sent these results out in our newsletters and things like that, where we see over and over. None of this is new. None of this is a surprise. What's the surprise about this is that the New York Times is admitting it after all these years.
That's the surprise.
They're finally
this is
being
where
honest about this.
Theory comes in later.
But we don't. This is not like some all these years before. Of course, people shouldn't believe it because it was just put on pro-life websites. No, these were results that were found on health inspections from state required health inspections. So you would see regular failings of things like unsterilized instruments, sewage seeping into the waiting room or the recovery room. I know at one of our abortion facilities in Austin, there were mice holes in the recovery room, and I saw them for myself after that facility closed and we walked through it. There were rusty areas throughout the building. You have also staff that are doing things that they are not qualified for. We know this again from these health inspections from state. You can do a request of this information, the FOIA request. To find this out. But we also know this from, thank God for Abby Johnson's ministry. So many of these former workers coming from her ministry have reported it wasn't uncommon for somebody to be administering something that they had no business administering. And then they get out of the facility and they think they can go to another health facility and do what they were doing. It's like, no, you have to actually go to school for this and get licensed for this. But yet,
I didn't sleep at a Holiday Inn Express last night.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. There's definitely a lot of that.
But why would this be the case if this is a legitimate healthcare facility? We know the answers to that. The morale is low. So even if you have, which this does exist, where there are legitimate licensed professionals working in Planned Parenthood, of course. There are nurse practitioners and RNs and people who are doing things that they're qualified to do. But if that's the case, why would these things still be happening all over the country? And I mean, they kill babies, as we've pointed out so many times before. They kill babies for a living. The morale is low. There is a camaraderie a lot of times with these workers, but there's only so much wearing down of your morale and of cutting corners before you just become a part of it and you just do it. And this is, these are a lot of the reasons why we're seeing these sorts of results. So
it's still to the stigma of it's an abortion clinic, it's dirty, it's nasty, and that's not us saying it. It's just the decades long of it's still kind of a shady thing. This is why Kamala Harris was the first VP ever to visit an abortion facility, because it does have a natural stigma, even with their biggest supporters. We'll go to the cocktail party. You can speak at the DNC. We'll say in a presidential debate that we stand with reproductive health care and that if Roe's overturned, women will die. We'll say all that, but we're not going to go tour it because, I don't know, we don't trust you. I do think this goes back into our conspiracy that's coming up at the end of this episode. There's this huge mistrust of politicians in Planned Parenthood. And it doesn't take a genius to realize, even under Cecile Richards, they had scandal after scandal after scandal, whether it was, I want my money to go kill black babies. Okay, great. Let me give you our, wire information. We're covering up sex traffickers. We're covering up for pimps. We're selling baby body parts. But now they sort of had a well-spoken woman who could go out and, do the talking points and lie. And Alexis McGill-Johnson, I think, is well-spoken most of the time. But she's not a good leader, and she's not an effective leader. And I think she personally is lost in a post-Roe world. And we've talked about that a lot. And that has consequences when it trickles down the ladder. Okay, here's the other thing. And I guess she did a great job at this. So since Roe was overturned, and we knew this would happen, it's a great knee-jerk reaction for pro-abortion people to give money to Planned Parenthood. So they raised $500 million with the fall of Roe. It's just like how they raised a fortune. I think they had a record fundraising year in 2016 when Trump got elected, because he's Hitler and he's going to lock women up, and we've got to find a way to have abortions while this tyrant runs around and yells at everybody. And then it kind of like settles off. But $500 million in 2022 when Roe was overturned, and that money hasn't helped their local facilities at all. And the New York Times covers it by saying little of it goes to the state affiliates to provide health care at clinics. If it's not going to prevent health, if it's not going to provide health care at clinics, what's it doing? So under the Planned Parenthood bylaws, most of the money raised is spent on the legal and political fight to maintain abortion rights. And there's your scam. It's going to the C-suites. That's exactly what it's doing. They don't do anything. It's all going to politics. All going to politics. So this BS about health care and supporting the poor minority women and all of that, it's absolutely going to their political fights.
Yeah.
Which we see, because a lot of those are successful, by the way.
Over the last 5 years, the National Planned Parenthood, they gave nearly $1 billion, with a B, $900 million to the local clinics. None of it, not $1, not 1 cent, for medical services. Instead, it went to, quote, legal support, public campaigns to expand abortion access. I thought nobody was pro-abortion. They were just pro-choice. And subsidies for patient navigators who help patients access abortions.
Shout your abortion, Steve. You gotta keep up with the time.
Yeah.
But it also shows what we've been saying for years, which is why the impact of 40 Days for Life, the impact of the pregnancy centers is so powerful. They actually do put all their eggs in D.C. and in politics. I mean, if you raise $500 million and none of it goes to helping the people that you raise the money off of helping, that it just all goes to politics. That's like us saying, hey, we need money because we're going to train a record amount of leaders this summer, which we will do. And we do need the money, by the way. And then we're like, actually, we're not going to use any of that money for training. We're going to use it to attack whatever, Tim Walz. Mm-hmm. It's just a total, none of it is going to those people. It's going to, I guess they would word it like protect their rights. But I think it shows how worried they are.
Yeah.
And the practical implication of this is if Planned Parenthood is defunded by Congress, they're already out of money. They're already not able to keep the sewage from seeping into the recovery room. It's done for a lot of these locations. We think they're going to, I mean, even if the funding continues, we think they're going to have to close facilities because of what we're seeing here. You take away those tax dollars, it's over.
Yeah, the tax dollars are going to be a big issue. I do think when they get defunded, they will get a big boost. It depends on when they get defunded.
And where it goes. If it's going to HQ again and they're not putting it into their clinics, that's fine. Because right now, the local clinics if people know enough to donate to their local Planned Parenthood, they're getting some money there. But all these things, I can't go to a sports website without getting an ad of support Planned Parenthood. That's all going to HQ. HQ will make bank off of it. The local clinics, a lot of their money is coming through Medicaid. And when that spigot of money gets shut off, there's a world of hurt.
That's a really good point. That's the point, is that the local clinics are dependent upon the federal government. Mm-hmm. So when they get defunded, that's when pro-life Susie Q, who listens to the podcast and thinks that Heather is not a human but only a woman panelist, that's her clinic closing because those federal dollars, obviously those local clinics have no chance at competing with the fundraising of the HQ because they're just plowing through people with appeal letters and webinars and campaigns, and they're raising a fortune. But they'll get a bump. The HQ will. But as you pointed out, that won't matter.
Yeah. Right now, as it stands, without Planned Parenthood being defunded at the moment, Planned Parenthood of New England is projecting an $8 million deficit over the next 3 years. Not Planned Parenthood of Kentucky, not Planned Parenthood of Alabama, Planned Parenthood of New England. $8 million 3-year deficit.
Let's hone in on this because let's do best case. Let's say we're running Planned Parenthood, we're evil, and we want to survive. So what I would be doing now is they get $750 million from the federal government. So you would just say, you would kind of need to lose hope a little bit and be like, we're going to get defunded. Just plan on worst case scenario. Then you go to George Soros or Warren Buffett, who have plenty of money, and you get a $1 billion from them, or $500 million, and you use it as a matching challenge or something like that. So when they get defunded, they're like, well, the people have spoken. The federal government's abandoning women. Our donors aren't. I shouldn't be giving them these talking points, I guess. And stand with us, and they raise. The problem is with that, because then we're like, oh my God, they raised $2 billion in a week. Ah! The problem is it's hard to break those old habits. It's still not going to go to the local clinics, and they're still going to close. Maybe they would have some reform and be like, we have got to start handing out checks of $250,000 or $500,000 to these local clinics so they can meet payroll. But they're probably not going to do that. They're probably going to put it all into winning the House or the Senate in 2026 and running on that. That is my, I don't bet, but I'd put money on that if I was a betting man, because that's what they do. That's what this whole article is saying. They raise money for politicians. It's a complete scam. It's a political arm of the Democrats, essentially. And it's just encouraging for us to know that that's their model. So defunding them, they'll try to win elections off of it, but they're still going to close a lot of facilities, and closing facilities is what saves babies.
But I bet a lot of, like, I would imagine that in really desperate times when that starts happening, before an affiliate closes, they're going to try anything that they can to keep it open. So I would imagine Medicaid fraud going up, them trying to bill even
now
more
you're
things.
Accusing them of a crime.
Than they do. Well, it has been, it has been proven before. I don't even know how many lawsuits they've had at this point in Texas, let alone across the country.
Well, the federal
for Medicaid fraud,
lawsuit that failed, that Abby was part of, when the feds showed up here and we're like, we need to talk to Abby. I'm like, she's over there.
Yeah, yeah.
And Planned Parenthood charges the woman for an abortion. Then they bill Medicaid for abortion. Then they bill the Warren Buffett Foundation that pays for abortions for underprivileged women.
Yep.
So they were triple billing, and that was the scam. We won't get into the criticisms of the lawyers, but we lost that case. It's ridiculous. And the feds weren't able to, get them guilty. That would have ended them. That was like, what, 06? No, 09, 10?
It was something around
the lawsuit.
2010.
10, 11. And Abby was part of that. I believe Sue Thayer was part of that. But anyways, that's the total scam. That's why I make the joke about what they would never do. They would never scam the government. They've done it before.
And if there's no audits or anybody that's in power that's actually holding them accountable, then they're going to keep getting away with this.
But not to state the obvious, but this is now post-Elon.
Yeah.
So you can scam the government, but it's probably not going to last as long.
Well, I hope not. Let's hope that they actually catch stuff like this.
Well, they should. They are. I mean, from what we see. Okay, we hate to say it, but it is going to get worse. The next thing in this New York Times article was the sexual abuse of children and abortion going hand in hand.
This is a really odd line, in my opinion. Employees said they felt a sense of mission going to work every day. They recount stories of seeing children as young as 12 and 13 years old receive abortions, sometimes because a family member impregnated them. How was work? How was work today?
Sorry, I don't mean to laugh, but your face got me on that. But.
How was work today? Great. Gave a 12-year-old an abortion. Couldn't be better. Like, such a sense of mission.
Yeah.
That's not the worst part. Well, was the boyfriend of age? I don't know. It was like an uncle or something.
Yeah. Who brought her
Their
in?
dad.
I don't know. We don't ask questions here.
In fact, this girl came in for the third time.
Yeah.
We've been able to serve her 3 times. It's so great. The abuse continues and we can help her. Yeah, that's usually.
There are scenarios, I've been in them. I've been in them with a relative before of like, well, I've driven a woman to have an abortion. I've driven a child. Somebody said that to me, a minor. I've driven a minor to have an abortion. It was the right thing to do. So, Yes. Well, that's the thing where you're touting yourself as a hero and everybody else is looking around with their like mouth on the floor going, do you hear what you're saying? Like we were able to help 12 and 13-year-old kids whose family members impregnated them.
These are the types of things that often you'll see like the clinic manager or somebody of a higher level instructing their employees, you will not report this, even though it's required by law. Because they are more concerned about their image and about police showing up, about feds showing up, about ambulances showing up, anything like that to bring and draw negative attention. That's what they want to avoid at all costs, not actual health and safety of patients that they have here. So again, New York Times reporting this.
New York Times, and I'm going to go through this litany of just how some of the staff is not happy. We're going to go through
Which we did a whole podcast on, so you can check out that episode. We'll link to it if you want a deep dive into...
A deep dive.
A deeper dive. This is pretty deep.
This is pretty deep. Also, fun little 40 Days for Life activist tip. Print off some of these New York Times articles and give them to workers at your local abortion facility and just be like, I don't know if you were aware of this, but there was a story on employees at Planned Parenthood. You can read it. It's the New York Times.
And
Somebody's got a case of the Mondays.
abortionworker.com also.
Okay, but this is the great lead-in because it's the.
Yes.
Did you see the New York Times article on people who work at Planned Parenthood?
Yeah.
Or you're like, no. So you either Google it because you don't want to talk to us.
Of course, yeah.
Or you take we used to give out, hey, for your safety, here's the health report of our local Planned Parenthood. They hated that.
Top 10
They
reasons.
threatened to sue us over us passing out their own health report. It was gold.
Yep.
I was like, but it's your health report. It's from the state. They hated us handing it out because it was a disaster.
Your condoms are ranked dead last. Don't tell them that.
Don't tell them that. That top 10 reasons not to go to Planned Parenthood is one of the most fun things I've ever done in my 20s. I was in my 20s. It was pretty long ago when we did that. Okay. I was in college, though. I was definitely in college. All right. Here we go. About half of Planned Parenthood employees leave in a year. That's insane. That's some serious turnover.
That's sounds like the type of stuff we'd say and people wouldn't believe it. But again, New York Times saying it.
But a little what to say when if you're talking to your local workers, like, so you work here, like, so half of all the employees leave within a year, like.
What do you think about that?
Why do they do that?
How about you be one of those?
No, it's like, do they get transferred? Like, why do they do that? Are you leaving? You think you'll leave in a year? That's fun. These are the workers that they're not going to call the cops on you. Okay. More than a dozen employees said they received inadequate training for patient intake, blood draws, and other tasks.
You don't say.
Here we go. Medical assistants are supposed to check patients in and collect payments. They end up drawing blood after little training and don't know how to respond when problems arise. I have a thing with needles that I've, in my opinion, grown in maturity over many years. I had to get blood drawn the other day at the doctor, and I was fine, all that. But it's been a psychological journey for me. If you tell me, like, I'm done. I could be the biggest pro-abortion person in the world. I'm like, I would never go to Planned Parenthood because if inexperience in drawing blood, I'm out.
So you don't want someone who doesn't know what they're doing cramming something into your veins?
One of the reasons I'm so loyal to my doctor is because I don't even like the term. What do they call them?
Phlebotomist?
Yes. It just creeps me out hearing that. It's like something out of a scary movie. The phlebotomist.
Phlebotomist.
She's a sweet, like 75-year-old woman who's done this a billion times, and she knows I'm kind of freaked out. So she's like, I need blood. Get over here. I'm here to draw blood. Like she's like makes it funny. And she has a picture of the beach in front of the chair. The pads on the chair creep me out. And,
oh, my God.
And they creep everybody out because it's for the people fainting. It's like if you just have a normal chair, you're like, oh, good, no one faints. But if you have the pads, it's like, I'm a goner. So anyways.
We have
one of
a fainter.
My favorite 40 Days for Life stories is about a phlebotomist, which is it's for real. It's a great story. One of our leaders in Southern California was just handing out like abortion worker information, like you don't have to work here type of stuff. And then flash forward like 6 months, she goes to the doctor, needs her blood drawn. The phlebotomist comes in, takes the blood. They're making small talk. How do you start this job? Well, somebody gave me a flyer. So the leader gave the flyer to the person who quit Planned Parenthood, became a real phlebotomist, and then drew her blood at the clinic.
Okay. See,
cool.
There's a positive.
Stuff works.
That's positive. Therefore, it was not in the New York Times article.
Yeah.
So, okay, this matches what we've heard from former workers who say that they've been drawn into exam rooms for tasks they were not equipped to perform. And this is right up the alley of the late, great Sue Thayer, God rest her soul, who just basically told her boss, like, I'm not doing a webcam abortion.
Yeah.
I'm the manager. I have no medical. Well, we'll train you. She's like, you can train me all you want. I don't, what are we doing? I'm the director, not a medical person. Okay, the staff often get paid so little that they qualify for Medicaid and federal food assistance.
Wow.
So this can be like, look, every organization has people that make more than other people, and there's a ladder and all that. But the fact that New York Times includes this is pretty bad because, I mean, to qualify for food assistance, I mean, you've got to be like really, really poor.
In Arizona, Planned Parenthood told the employees, you might want to think about getting a second job to help you make ends meet.
Oh, it's pretty bad.
The Arizona Planned Parenthood report cited prior operational mismanagement, a fragile financial state, and staff recruitment, retention, and morale issues. And we've said that for a long time. There hasn't been a worse time to work at Planned Parenthood than today.
But other than that, Mrs. Lincoln, how did you enjoy the show?
That's right.
Gosh.
That was funny.
Among the causes
yes.
were chronic underinvestment and negligence. Oh, my gosh.
Imagine. Yeah. I'll just refrain from saying that. Okay, so sources of former...
Scores. This is in quotes.
Scores of former Planned Parenthood employees, quote, have sued Planned Parenthood for unpaid overtime, refusal to provide breaks, pushing out employees who suffer injuries or give birth.
Shocker.
And firing people who complain about discrimination.
No surprise.
I don't think they like me here because I'm black. Well, you're fired. What? Okay.
They fired her because she was black. Well, you're fired too.
Yeah, you're fired too.
We'll bring in some guy to draw the blood.
We'll put this in the show page too. This we did a whole podcast on Planned Parenthood workers. So it's season 9, episode 45, called Planned Parenthood Workers in Open Revolt. So we'll have that if you want to listen to that, because we do the deep dive, and that's actually really fun.
That was with Ramona.
Yeah, it was with Ramona.
Yeah.
We didn't.
The other lady panelist.
The other lady panelist. That's good. That's the lower third from here on out. Can I be a male panelist? That just sounds cool.
I think you need the whole range of descriptors. You're the cisgendered white male.
You're the white pale Packer fan
Middle-aged.
panelist.
The white pale, yeah.
The
that's
white
right.
pale, because you got to have the pale with the panelist.
Yeah, I've
know.
never been outside a day in my life.
As we had to address Steve and confront Steve that you absolutely are not Mexican on a previous podcast. Started to go down that road, and me and Rona were like, no. Yeah. Okay. Patient care is lacking. Planned Parenthood of Greater New York sent an email to staff outlining expectations of limiting appointments to 10 minutes.
After waiting 3 hours in the waiting room for an non-abortion appointment, I can't tell you how many times in Austin alone we have stood outside these facilities and had woman after woman after woman come out and complain to us that they were waiting for so long and they finally got up and left, or they were waiting for so long and they had this appointment, a month or 2 months in advance, and it was over. The waiting room was full. It was jam-packed. The workers were rude. And as I pointed out on also a previous episode, I don't know which one it was at the top of my head, we went over patient reviews that were posted on Google and Yahoo ads where they specifically cited, they made me wait forever. So this is not just, again, one-offs. These are patterns, and patterns in multiple cities and states. So it's not terribly surprising that once again we're hearing this. And the other thing I wanted to point out too is, no, this wasn't specifically a Planned Parenthood facility. This was an independent facility in Austin, but we had several former workers from this facility who had conversions and left their jobs, all at separate times, say similar complaints about the abortionist. And this was one of them, that the abortionist would get mad at the workers if the woman dared, his patient, the woman, dared to come into the exam room and have questions for him. He would yell at the employees for not taking care of her questions already. And how dare them, because he wants to get in and get out and make as much money as possible.
Which makes sense.
Yeah. And it just totally blows that, whole claim out of the water that there is a woman and her doctor. So many of them don't ever talk to their doctor. It's just he gets in the exam room, he does the abortion. Their goal is to do, we've heard this from many former workers, the goal is to do this abortion within 3 to 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And that makes sense because they're lining up. Maybe they have 3, maybe they have 5, 6, 7 exam rooms. It's literally hurting them like cattle to get in there and get out as soon as possible. And then they all go to one waiting room. That you don't have a recovery room. You sit in oftentimes a plastic chair, such as what was shown an example in the movie Unplanned. You're not sitting, in your own room in a hospital bed or anything like that, recovering from a surgery that you just had. A very common and invasive procedure. So yeah,
and
get them out faster.
We're very close to getting to our conspiracy theory, which is not very much a conspiracy theory, but a fact. And the listener's going to enjoy it. But to close out, Columbus, Ohio, clients complained that being in Planned Parenthood felt like being in a factory. Those are the clients, by the way.
You don't say.
Planned Parenthood routinely requires patients who receive settlements to sign an NDA, non-disclosure agreement. That's common, though. But the fact that they put it in there. So,
I think what's notable about that is that shows that this is just the tip of the iceberg. These are just the people who either didn't sign it or were willing to break it and talk. How many stories like this are out here, but they're undercover because the NDA was signed?
We worked with a woman who had a botched abortion or was lied to. I forget what it was years ago, and she wouldn't take their money, and they were offering a lot of money, and she wouldn't take their money because of the NDA. Okay, so to close out, Planned Parenthood's horrible. They're awful. It's terrible. What's going on? And they are blaming 3 things. Misinformation.
Oh, it's always misinformation.
The videos were
Get
edited.
you every time.
Politics is Trump's fault.
Just politics.
Or the last one, it's Steve's fault, the pro-lifers.
Don't you mean anti-abortion religious zealots, Sean?
Yes. Here's the comical part of this.
I didn't put that sewage in that recovery room.
Right. So on a podcast like this, and you'll see it on the Workers one, season 9, episode 45, there's like 1 billion citations of like all this stuff they've done, and we got sources everywhere, and there's citations. In this, there's one. It's the New York Times article. There's only one.
Yeah.
Like, that's hysterical. It's like this is like a podcast that we would dream. Like, and we're like, that didn't really happen. And we're like, and of course our source is the New York Times, and everybody just kind of laughs at us. Then we wake up. Here's the theory. And I don't think it's a theory. I think it's 100%. This doesn't happen. New York Times doesn't just blast Planned Parenthood as if they're basically trying to get them defunded. This is out of the get rid of Biden playbook. Every Democrat last June, when the debate happened, Joe Biden's not fit to be president. You can't have Biden. We didn't know anything was wrong with Biden. Biden's horrible. His tax policy is horrible. Biden's terrible. Everything's wrong with Biden. So they could get him out and get in Kamala. So the New York Times has a replacement for Alexis McGill Johnson, the CEO of Planned Parenthood. You can fix it. She's been ineffective. We're going to blast them. And then the minute the new CEO is in, oh my gosh, the cleanest healthcare facilities ever, and it's fine.
Oh, that's interesting.
What's so smart about that?
That's interesting.
It's interesting, Sean. It's a good
interesting.
theory.
You won't take a position on it. Am I right or wrong?
I think it makes sense, and it's brilliant too, because it's not even the New York Times blasting them. It's the New York Times. We're just reporting the 50-plus former executives, consultants, employees, and managers who were willing to go on the record and talk to us, as well as all the legal documents and business records we could get our hands on.
And that's the thing, and they can pull this off with even the litany of everything wrong because of how that worked. It didn't work because Kamala didn't get elected, but it worked to get rid of Biden, and everybody bought in. They ended up regretting it, buying in, but they bought in, and that formula worked. Biden's presidency has been brilliant. He's been amazing. He's been great. The next day, Biden's presidency is awful. It's terrible. Everything Donald Trump said about him is accurate. We're going to fix it with his vice president somehow. And, that they were off to the races. I think that's what they're trying to do. She's a DEI hire. They haven't been able to fire her. She's not good. She was all over the map promoting trans stuff days after the leak of Roe v. Wade being overturned. Like, if you went to their website, we did a podcast on that. Like, Roe's overturned. What can we do? Have gatherings in your house and talk to your neighbors about why reproductive rights are important. That was their call to action on their website. Like, if I was just angry and I went to their website, that's what they told me to do.
I wish I would have had a neighbor have me over to talk about why reproductive rights are so important.
Yeah, that would have been.
That'd have been awesome.
They needed another lady panelist. So that's my theory. They're trying to get rid of her. I'm not buying it that basically this looks like an article you would have written in Day 41 magazine, and yet it's in the New York Times, and there has to be a play.
Is it the New York Times trying to get rid of her, or is there a COO or a board member, or is there somebody who is like, hey, New York Times?
Yeah. It's hey, New York Times. It's a board member. It's somebody.
Yeah.
It could be George Soros. Who knows who it is? But it's like, it's not the actual Times person. But they go to the Times and they're like, here's the deal. Women are dying in the streets, according to Whoopi Goldberg. Roe's overturned. Lunatic got reelected. Like, we're in trouble. And something's got to change at Planned Parenthood. And we have a lot of material to get rid of the CEO. Then you blame the CEO. You take responsibility. You get a new, young, fresh face in there. They raise a lot of money off the hire. Then they raise even more money when they get defunded. And you kind of get a fresh start.
I think it's very possible.
I do too.
Yeah.
You create, Cecile Richards died of cancer. You create the Cecile Richards Brain Cancer Foundation for Planned Parenthood, whatever you do. But there's like this fresh thing because Planned Parenthood has always successfully adjusted to their climate. Unfortunately, you look at the 80s and 90s and George W. Bush, and when he appointed Roberts, who it turned out not to be great, but we didn't know that at the time, and Alito, and then Obama, like they were just like, the mountaintop, and then they stayed on the mountaintop throughout Trump, actually, raising tons of money, still getting tax dollars. They've just been stagnant for like 5 years.
This feels more desperate than usual, and this feels like a little death spiral-y. This isn't just like, oh, wow, Leiden got him. This feels like it's not the first domino. There's a number of dominoes. It's building momentum. The avalanche is coming. I mean,
it's internal.
Yeah.
It's internal.
Combined with external problems, which is the largest 40 Days for Life campaigns ever, the potential defunding of Planned Parenthood through the government, all of these different things. There's a lot of problems right now. Any one of them is devastating. Now they're facing multiple, like the Titanic has too many of the compartments have been breached. It's taken on more water than it can handle.
So since the listener and the viewer are hearing a lot of this information for the first time out of this article, I'm interested in your feedback on this. What is it just the New York Times saying, you know what, we report the facts and that's what we do and here's the story? Or is there something else going on? So give us your theory. You can also agree or disagree strongly in either way on my theory that the fix is in and they're trying to boot out Alexis McGill Johnson. So be sure to put that in the comments of the YouTube page. So thank you, Steve. Thank you, ladies panelists. And please rate, review, and share this podcast. And we will see you next time. God bless you.